All right, we're live. Welcome to my live stream. I'm Joshua Kemble, illustrator, cartoonist, graphic designer, and full-time art director. And when I'm not doing art direction or anything like that, or just like hanging out with the family and doing family obligations and stuff, because I'm a dad too, I do these live streams where I work on book 2 of 2 stories, which is my graphic novel. Let's see here. It's my confessional graphic memoir that grapples with questions of faith, mental illness, depravity, and ultimately redemption in a fallen world. And book 1 right now is at a ridiculously low price on Amazon. I think it's about $1 more. Like if you charged $1 for a year I spent on it, it's about $1 more than that. So go check it out and pick up a copy if you haven't yet. I think most viewers of this stream have, and this is just basically a stream that I do whenever I'm working on book 2. I haven't live streamed for a few days. I had a series of days where I had to, well, I guess the last live stream was on Thursday, so it really hasn't been that long. But I haven't live streamed in the last day or so because I had to do some book layouts for my wife, and then aside from that, we had like family in town, and so I had to watch Ben for the day, and so I've missed like basically just one day of doing my thumbnail rough, tight roughs and all of that, and also this is starting super late because by the time I kind of woke up, like I took a quick nap, and by the time I woke up, I had to like catch up on a bunch of stuff I didn't do for the day, like shower, workout, all of that fun stuff. So just basically, it's basically one of those days where like life stuff came up. And so I wasn't able to start till like super late, but that's why they tend to call these hangouts the night gang, because it's like we definitely tend to do them super late. All right, so with all that being said, I'm going to get into it. So this page that you're looking at is the rough thumbnail page for page 126 of my graphic novel. It's looking like it's probably gonna, I have about 2 pages left. It's looking like it might be like in the 130s, which is kind of cool. Nice chunky book. And we're gonna get into roughing those out right now. Oh, and I'm going to be drinking a Bravery Brewing Blackberry Dippa Double IPA. Bravery Brewing is a really awesome brewery out here in Lancaster, California. They make the best brews out here. So I like them. All right. So that being said, let's get into it. And I'm just going to work on this page. So generally when I start, I will break, oh my goodness, I'm on the wrong, there we go. Usually I'll break these into sections, but it looks like that might, hasn't already been done. Okay, so first I need to merge visible. Seems like I was working in a weird manner the last time I was working on this, which would make sense because I think I did most of this on the Artcasters, which was on my channel earlier this week. And we had a really awesome conversation with a good friend of mine, Kevin Cross, who I hadn't talked to in a while. So it was a very engrossing conversation. So it kind of makes sense why my files were a little disorganized for that day. It was probably very end of the conversation. So, okay, as I was saying before, this is the previous page. So actually what you're looking at is 125. And what I do when I start a page, at least for this book, is I just copy the previous page so I don't have to redesign all the templates or sizing or anything like that. And I don't have to like remeasure the width and stuff of like my 9-panel grid that I'm basing the whole thing on. And so then I've got all the previous panels to reference from. So there we go. So that was my last panel. and I believe the type before it was that. So it's going to say convicted like I've never felt before. So anyhow, as I'm working on this, I'll also talk a little bit about my week. I had a really good experience doing signings this week for the first time in a long time. And it was really cool. It was neat to go to like different retail establishments and like meet human beings and physically have to pitch a book. I think it's good exercise. And I made a few vlogs that I hope to improve on in the future. What I'd like to do with my in-store signings, if I ever do them again, is try to remember to like take better footage of the store itself, so that it can be like a way for people who, particularly people who live in Southern California, be made more aware of like the variety of comic shops and comic friendly shops that are out here in California. But in general, it was pretty successful. And I'm definitely eager to kind of continue this method that I'm doing of promotion for this book, which is just basically I'm going to try to do a lot of on the ground work. Because that's something I actually often forget to do as an illustrator. Like it's really easy to get lost in sort of the creative part of creative and forget the sales part. And so for me, that's like a huge part of what I'm gonna try to focus on, is like giving my book the best shot. Aside from the fact that I think that, you know, business is based on relationships often, and honestly, just starting to establish some relationships like locally with my comic shops, and with other comic shops in the area is not bad business. And that's like the kind of less fun thing. On a fun note, regardless of business or connections or anything like that, it's just fun to get out in the community and meet other comic geeks and see, you know, a little bit more of like each signing I did, I got to hear some really cool personal stories of the people who run the shops, and just some really great conversations that you wouldn't really have just kind of going to a store and walking around, like hearing the stories of the people who kind of built the thing. And that's pretty cool. Like there's human beings behind those stores. And so I know I push people to Amazon because they can get a really good deal and free shipping for like 2 stories. And it helps my ranking. But also, I will say it doesn't hurt to like ask your local comic shop to order it, and actually giving them that business is a smart idea because it's a hard job being a retailer, and people who like take that risk and are able to kind of build a shop that lasts for years out of it kind of deserve a little reward for that endeavor that they do. Okay. So I also need to I'm trying to kind of, in these sections, pull back references to book 1. And so that's something I need to do, that I'm going to be doing. Let's see here. I'm trying to see a page where I can kind of pull. I'm trying to kind of pull layouts that reference a little bit of the first chapter, just to kind of subtly have some visual concluding going on, since this is going to be the last chapter. So this will be a pretty hefty book, like comparatively, because I haven't even included the chapter titles in the page count. It's already exceeded the previous book in length. So that's going to be cool. one thing I like about indie comics too is like you're not kind of restricted to the extent on like page length. I mean, as long as it fits in a signature of 4, you're pretty good. But we'll see. There's always a chance I might send this to like Marcosia and they'll be like, you need to trim like 16 pages or something, and then I'll have to deal with that nightmare. But I'm guessing not from my experience. They've been pretty flexible as a publisher so far. All right. So I'm also realizing there's so many sequences in this room. Okay. But I do think it might not be bad to have like one more. I'm going to have this be staring into the cup of coffee. So we're going to have a cup of Joe here and make that happen. But overall, it's been a very productive, creative week. Definitely like getting hotter in the area I live. And so that starts to kind of create this like, I don't know what it is. It's like there's something about the summer that makes me feel kind of, I think the right term would be lethargic. I hope I'm not misusing that. But it's like you feel a little tired and like there's just something about extreme heat that just makes me feel lazy and feel like being lazy. So there's that. Let's see. But I mean, overall, it's been a really productive week. I did these signings. I am just very much at the point of this book where I'm ready to move on to the next stage. So a lot of it now is like a, you know, if I have to run like, in theory, like 3 races to finish this graphic novel, this is like the first race, and I'm at like the very, very final part, and so it's very easy to like start getting exhausted. But it's also really exciting because it's like I totally can see the finish line. So there's that. Let's see here. The downside of starting the stream super, super late on like a Saturday, which right now actually technically it's like a Sunday morning, is like most people are not going to be up at like midnight on a Saturday or on a Sunday morning, I guess I should say. And then those that are probably out like partying or hanging out with friends or something, or sleeping. But I like the idea of doing these streams on like the late nights that I work, regardless of like, you know, the timing and whether it's, you know, whether there's going to be a mass turnout in the chats or anything like that. And I will say from my experience doing these streams, sometimes like at like 1 in the morning, like a crew of night people show up. So who knows? I want this to be more of an expression because right now it's just kind of dead. All right. So now I'm gonna get this. Yeah, that looks a little better. And if we're looking at coffee, okay, there's that too. I got my stickers in, and that's pretty cool. So if I can book some more events coming up, I'll be hopefully having some stickers that I can give away. Um, and maybe I will show those a little later when I'm not drawing, while I'm streaming. My wife is also pulling a super late night. She's working on a kid's book for a deadline, which is crazy because like last night we were formatting a different kid's book for another one of her clients. And that just kind of shows you how busy she's been. Because it feels like for almost a good year, every time she wraps a book, another one comes. It's been pretty cool. I also don't like that arm just being dead weight. So I think I might have this over here. I had a crazy dream about, it was very vivid, and it was like I had gotten informed by my college that I had somehow missed one of the courses for completing my MFA, and that like somehow I had just not known that, and so like I had to retake the course. And I was like, dude, it's like 20 years later, you know, like this isn't, that's not okay. So I like drove to like this is all in the dream, right? I drove to like the offices because I went to Cal State Long Beach. So this dream actually took place at Cal State Long Beach for a little bit. Found parking. It was like a nightmare to find parking because it always is. It's better now that they've expanded. I think they have like 3 giant parking structures that weren't there when I was there. But anyhow, in my dream, I didn't modify it. It was like what it was like when I was there. So I wait in line at like the business administration office. It's like I think that's what it's called. It's like the area where you like go in for enrollment stuff. And I'm waiting this long line. And I get there and they just basically are like, yeah, there's nothing we can do. Like you just kind of have to retake that class if you want to have your degree. So I was like, crap, well, this is insane. So I'm kind of fuming. And then finally I wind up like kind of stomping back to my car, like furiously, feeling just like, what am I going to do? Like, how am I going to afford enrollment? I'm already so much in student loan debt from this school, and now I have to take out another loan and pay like another enrollment fee and stuff. Anyhow, and then like, well, how am I going to do this on top of my job? Like, what are people going to say? Like, you know, like just going through all that. And I get to my car and my car is upside down. And I was like, this is the weirdest thing ever. But it felt so, it was one of those vivid dreams where it felt like super real. And so when I woke up and wasn't in a parking lot with my car upside down, I felt like this huge sigh of relief, like, oh, thank God I don't have to do that. I haven't had like a college nightmare in a long time. But yeah, that was a fun one. So that happened. I think it's called like Ryu and the Last Dragon. Watch that with my son. He was so moved by it that he was in tears. And so we watched it together because that time he just watched it while his mom and I were working. And so he was just like really moved. And I remember going up to him when he was kind of choking up from seeing it. And I was like, are you okay? Was there something sad? And he's like, no, these are happy tears. And I was like, that is the cutest, funniest, most awesome thing I've heard. So he was like moved to tears by art. And I thought that was, to me, that's a good sign because it's like, hey, this is a kid who's got empathy. I feel like, I don't know, seems like a good sign. Jake said, "When will I show him Avatar: The Last Endbar, The Last Airbender?" Did I just say The Last Endbar? Also, Jake said, "College nightmare. I live one right now." um, so Avatar: The Last Airbender, I have shown him Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it was awesome. He loved that. He loved it. We watched that, and then I think we got like halfway through The Legend of Korra. But he really liked Last Airbender. Um, which I will say, there's definitely some similarities in plot between Naruto, this Naya and the Last Dragon, and Avatar actually have very remarkably similar plots. But I think it's because they're all pulling from that like different tribes feuding for, they once were in a united land, they've been torn apart. Like I think it's a kind of pretty common story arc thing. I'm trying to think of who did it first. Like what came first, Avatar or Naruto? I think Naruto might have predated Avatar. I think for writing, Avatar is a lot tighter and a little more coherent because like the characters, Naruto is a lot harder to follow, at least for me, because the mass amount of characters and complexities in the plot. But yeah, I'd be curious to kind of see like which came first. Yeah, it's like the hero's journey kind of story arc, but with like the feuding tribes and stuff that have been like separated from the end. There's the pull of Journey to the West. Yep, there we go. But I was stoked to see my kid like really digging art and being moved by it. Not the first time I've seen that, but every time I see that, I'm like, yeah, that's the way it should go. Let's see here. All right, so I got to get this next bit. So this was the thing I've been missing. Oh, Jake, how are the comics going, man? So this was the thing. Okay. So let's see. Also, I love that you said that you've been living you're living the college nightmare right now. Okay, so let's see. This was the thing I'd been missing with a question mark. I kind of like the idea of these slim panels like down there. So I think to reflect that, I'm probably going to do that. Yep, that works. Got jumped on Wednesday with an oral exam on the Friday, so I had a detour back to school. How does that work? Like, I thought you were done. That's a trip. Studied barely 7 hours and passed with a B. Nice. Nicely done. Something when, like, so I used to teach college art courses and stuff. And one of the things I always try to really reiterate to students is like, no one looks at your GPA when you're out of school. And I mean, I was like an A student and stuff, but still, like, I've never had a time where I've been like, at a job interview and they're like, "What was your GPA?" Like, you know what I mean? Um, it, and this is for art jobs in particular, because I don't know how it works with like business or anything like that. But I would say like I've never had an art job that gave a crap what grades I got. They might have cared about the degree. I've definitely had that. Like I've had art jobs where they want to see, and even when I'm hiring, like I'll look at somebody's education and whether they have a degree or not, and all that helps me do is parse out whether the person's able to finish something they set out to do. And also, like, depending on the college, like if I'm familiar with graduates from that school having like a mad amount of skills, then obviously that'll make me interested in those particular people, right? But in general, like I've literally never done an interview uh, as like somebody vying for a job or in a hiring position, hiring somebody for a job where that's been a thing. Where I've been like, what kind of grades did you get? Yeah, it's just it's never gonna come up. So anyhow, I don't know why that just reminded me of like because I think what's important is you pass and like you know if it's an art job, like make sure you have a really good portfolio, and then outside of that, like no one cares. I don't know if that makes sense. I think for Jake, for your major, it might make a little more difference, but I don't know. Maybe not. My mind had been knee deep in comics to ignore that I had. Oh, got it. Got it. Caught it in time by reading your email, which you avoid. Yep. Yeah. I try to, with my email, I try to stay on top of it so it doesn't snowball. Because I feel like even, I don't know, I'm more meticulous about it now than I think I used to be. Because like to me, a clear inbox is like a very nice thing. Like I love showing up in the day and having a clear inbox. Now, the amount of times I've ever had that, I don't even know if I could count on like one hand. But that's a good day if you have a clear inbox. Let's see here. Okay, so let's get to this part. This section is going to say, so was this thing I've been missing? Oh, this might be really good. I've been missing. I've promised to become a mail master after university so I can finally build routine and sorting and stuff. Yeah, dude. Um, there is a method. There's a method. Like for me, um, it helps to have like a sorting system and to have different labels for the topics. So it's like, if I have like emails that I need to save for taxes, then I mark them as taxes. If I have that's really helpful if you make like a purchase as an artist, at least in the US, like, if you're if you do contract work, and you're a sole proprietor, you can write off business expenses to an extent. Like you have to be really honest about what you write off. But so if I buy like ink or anything like that that's related to like art and the execution of art for my comics, for clients or anything like that, like they're all write-offs. The problem is by tax time, if you don't organize the stuff you bought, it's like you're not going to have any sort of track record to back up your expenses if you get audited, right? And like the worst thing that you could have happen, I think, one of the worst things you can go through is being audited. And then the very worst thing you could go through is being audited for taxes that you wrote off that you have no proof of. So you want to write off expenses that you actually have like receipts for. So that's part of like the email sorting. Part of it's like it's just like stuff like clients, like so have clients like website. Okay, so that's website. Like having different labels and categories really helps me organize it. I have like music emails, all that kind of stuff. um, I think that helps a lot. And then, like I said, I also have like a priority system. So I have like color coded ways that I notify myself of like what's urgent, what do I need to respond to immediately, what can I sit on for like a day, and so on. So there's, like, yeah, anyhow, totally rambly, but I get kind of weird about that kind of organization. But it's really helpful, especially in a workplace like where you're dealing with like massively important emails and constant emails and communication like that. Like if you don't organize it, you're going to get buried or you're going to miss like really important things. And then also with server organization too, like working off of a server for a business, it's like you have to have really good organization with your file handling and stuff, and that makes it just easier for like teams to like access different folders and different clip art and stuff like that that they're going to use for a creative team. Let's see. Jake was saying, I'm going to have to create a few new accounts through various mail clients. I want to give Proton Mail a shot. So I'm curious about the few new accounts. That's interesting. I like the idea of that, but I wonder. I know, Jake, you have like an anonymity thing too, so that would make a lot of sense. Although even that makes sense to have multiple email accounts for different things, right? Like, so if you're doing art, especially if it's under like a nom de plume, like Jake Twister, right? Like that's a nom de plume. So it's like, if that's like what you're gonna do comics as, and maybe like a certain style of illustration or something, and you're gonna get work through that, well, then you could have that as like one. And then, yeah, like your own personal email. I have known people who've like had multiple names as an artist. So like they'll do paintings and fine art, and they'll kind of call themselves something else. And then for commercial art, they'll call themselves by something else. And so keeping those separated isn't bad. All right. So was this the thing that I'd been missing? I feel like I've done the coffee mug swirly shout out already. This is the problem of working on 120 something pages. Like I start to wonder if I've done something already. I'm pretty sure this thing I've done already. If not, I should do it. If I have done it, I might still be able to call it back, but I don't want to repeat it too much. But I do feel like the coffee thing, I think I already did that. So, in case you guys are curious too, so in Two Stories Book 1, there's a scene where he kind of looks down into like the swirling waters below, and it's like kind of like a swirly water circle. And I'm pretty sure, so I have this idea, since I'm holding a coffee mug in this, to have it be holding the coffee and looking at it as it swirls. But I feel like I'm pretty convinced that I already did that earlier in the sequence. So right now, as it's flashing, I'm literally going through the entire 160 something pages to see if I did that already. That also makes me super sympathetic to people who are in like films like from like 2 years before they filmed it or something, like and then they're asked all these like deep cut questions about the film, and it's like a lot of them may not even remember, something they worked on like 2 years ago. And a lot of like big fans of films have seen it, like, you've seen a movie like maybe 50 times or 20 times or 10 times or something. And like some of these actors are like so busy working, they may not have even watched the film, you know, after they were in it. So while it had like this massive impact on us as viewers, like, because I'm like that too. Like I like to know the nitty gritty of like what happened and stuff. But um, it is amazing how much um, memory it requires to kind of do. You know what's funny? I don't think I did that coffee swirling thing. If I did, it was like earlier. Maybe it was at the beginning because he was drinking and looking into the drink. Ah, that might have been it. Sorry, guys. I know this isn't like the most visually exciting thing to just see a blinking screen. Okay, well, done it before or not, I'm going to do it because I'm not seeing it. So maybe that was something. I'm pretty sure I did actually do it. Reusing visual metaphors can expand what's already established, for sure. Oh, dude, you guys are at 24%, Jake. That's awesome. Or 84%. That's a lot different than 24. 84 is really good. So you guys are going to close it out, right? How much longer is left on the campaign, Jake? This is for that like twisted fairy tale thing. Let's see. All right. Well, gonna reuse it. I am pretty sure I already used this in a page. I just couldn't find the page at a short glance, but I'm pretty sure I already have. I think in that one I have the like a finger like going into the cup and causing the reflection of that scene. But regardless, it doesn't hurt to have the visual metaphor again. All right, and this is like my worst sketch of the circle top of a mug that I've probably ever done in my life. Just need to own it and do it confidently here. 24 more days and at 84% already. That's really good. That's really good. Because usually like the first few days you have that like boost. And then it'll be kind of stagnant like mid-campaign, and then you have like a really big boost toward the end. I don't know if that's every campaign, but like, and I've actually never run a one of those campaigns. I actually should at some point, uh, but but I've had so many friends who have, and every single one I have talked about that. Where it's like you have this intro boost, and then like before it goes away boost, and that's when you usually see your bigger numbers. So if you're at 84%, like that's pretty likely to get funded, man. Yeah, 4 day dry spell, like right, yeah, at 52, right? Like right in the center, right in the middle. And then 62 to 84 shot up. Nice. That's badass, man. Okay, so this is going to be this will loosely reference that spiral sequence. And of course, when it comes to the final pencils, I will probably look more carefully at the page with the spiraling water to kind of get that even more accurately presented. So yeah, it's been a really good week, and it was kind of a fun week because I usually I took a few days off work, and that's kind of nice to like have a change of pace. And yeah, just like I think in general, you know, things have been going pretty good. But I feel a little reinvigorated um, to do stuff. But I will tell you, I might have mentioned this before, but it's like I had forgotten how exhausting it is to do like in stores or events. Like I do remember from doing conventions um, years back, like you would have this like almost like after convention hangover. Um, and maybe sometimes that was a literal hangover, considering the time the time when I used to do them. There might have been a little bit of that, a little bit of drinking, but but in general, you just like feel pretty wiped um, from like sitting in a table and selling stuff all day. It's like it's actually pretty exhausting. And then I also think like on top of that, like um, having to be like socially on, like in person, I think is also very exhausting. Um, for me in particular, but honestly, I don't know if it's like I'm special in that. Like I think that's a pretty common thing. Um, so I am feeling uh, slightly tired from that whole experience, but reinvigorated if that's possible. So kind of, I hope that kind of makes sense. So there's going to be some legs there, da, da, da. And then we've got this couch. How do you deal with the mindset of comics as work 24/7? Does that apply to you? Uh, hmm. So I'll take a stab at answering that and let me know if I'm misunderstanding the question. So, I mean, like my day job is like art directing. So, and it's for like mostly like souvenirs and promotional products. So it's like, we do stuff for like museums and parks and zoos, theme parks, that kind of stuff. And so it's like one-off, illustrations and graphic designs. So I'm doing that, you know, 8 hours minimum every day, commuting about 3 hours a day. And then comics I do daily. Um, so like I think the comics as work 24/7 mindset might apply to me because I don't really uh, stop. Like I work on comics pretty consistently, like almost every day, except yesterday where, like I said, sometimes exceptions come up. Like yesterday, my wife had a kid's book finished, and I'm really, because of where I work during the day, and also just various jobs I've done as an artist, it's like I'm pretty good at doing InDesign book layouts and prepping books for print. And so we worked on that for like 4 hours yesterday. Um, and that's why I didn't work on my comic. But in general, I work on my comic at minimum, probably about an hour a day. At very minimum, that's like the bare minimum that I'll work on comics. And I think the way I deal with it is, I, I've started to realize I think that's just the way I am. Like, um, it requires a lot of self-discipline, but I also think I'm slightly autistic, and so I think that helps me too. Because I'm like super interested in comics, and so for me, it's like hard to not uh, do that thing. Like if I have a story that I want to tell and I feel compelled to tell it, I'm going to work on it till it's done, and then uh, I I remember reading a book a while ago called the War of Art, and it really had an impact on me. It was recommended by a friend who was a coworker who since passed away, and he was a really good dude. And he had loaned it to me, and it did convict me a lot as an artist because it talked about if you want to call yourself a writer, you need to be writing every day. If you don't write for the day, you're not a writer that day. And so he was like, if you want to take a day off of writing, that's fine. Just don't call yourself a writer, you know. like, and that was his point in it. And I'm paraphrasing because it's been a long time since I've read it. But that's kind of the mindset I apply to myself. Like I don't feel like I've earned the right to call myself a cartoonist unless I worked on cartooning for the day. And it doesn't matter how many books I have out or comics I've done or art I've done or anything like that. I feel like I'm not really a cartoonist if I'm not cartooning every day. So, but if I'm cartooning today, then I can properly call myself a cartoonist, and I feel like I've earned that right. So I don't know. Does that answer your question, Jake, or did I just like dance around it? I don't know. I hope I'm being straightforward with my answer to that. This is not a bad drink. It's got like a blackberry vibe. Um, I almost feel like I should be eating peanuts uh, with it, so that it's like you have a like peanut butter and jelly thing going, because it's definitely got that like jelly aftertaste, but it's pretty good. Yeah, Pressfield emphasized that art was truly regular work and made me rethink some pieces on dealing with comics. Yeah, for sure. I don't think a lot of what he's saying is like super profound. I think that's why I like that book, and a lot of creatives do. He talks about things that we kind of know, like I think deep down most of us know that like in order to get like like for me, like when I wanted to make a graphic novel, I hadn't made a graphic novel, and I knew it would be work, like I knew that going in. But it's like I think there are some people who like might prefer just the fantasy without the action. But it's a lot of work doing books, and you just kind of do it. Like the nice thing about Pressfield is he just kind of highlights that, where he's like, no, 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 it's like it's work. Like you show up, you clock in, you do your job, um, and yet like it's also super fun and creative. And he talks about the muses and stuff like that. But I think it's really good. Um, yeah, the affirmation boost from the book that I think gets people going. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's got some affirmations in it. For me, what was helpful was just the idea, like when you're creative and you're doing stuff and you're experiencing fighting resistance, and then you have somebody putting it down on paper, like, no, 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 this is a thing. Um, I think that helps. Let's see here. I don't know. Did you get anything out of that book, Jake? Out of War of Art? What's funny is the people I know who could benefit the most from reading that book will probably never read that book. That's the weird part. Because, like, by the time I got around to reading that book, I was already kind of doing the work. So it was just sort of a pat on the back, like, hey, yeah, that makes sense. And it was just kind of encouragement in the sense of, like, hey, you're showing up, you're doing your work. if that's how it's done. But like I know people who don't show up, aren't doing the work, like and have like fantasies about like where they want to be. And I think quite a few people who should read that book and like haven't read it yet. And I think that's a shame. I don't know. I don't know how that works. Maybe that's the conundrum of like any sort of guidance or how-to books or advice, you know. People who most need advice. Yeah. But yeah, the resistance thing, you're right. It is kind of for like the people who have just started out and stuff like that. Yeah, that makes sense too. I have a completion theory of like you know, I think as artists we should just be making art. And like I honestly think like regardless of whatever book people read or anything like that, like if people call themselves artists and they're not like actively pursuing art, like I don't know if they love art. Like because I think if you love something, you pursue it, and I think if you love something, you're active in it. Like, and I think that if you're not active in something, then you probably don't love it. You know, I don't know if that makes sense. Um, I was just trying to think about like my own theory on it, but it's like to me, I feel like people who love comics, like really love comics and love making comics and love cartooning, love the idea of making comics, like they're doing it. People who don't love it aren't doing it. And yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. And I think there's people who like love comics, but and then I think there's a lot of people, and this is where Pressfield would be helpful, who are just prevented by fear. Yeah, wouldn't that categorize passions? I'm trying to figure out what that means. Hmm. I mean, I guess all things are. I don't understand that question, Jake. Um, in regard to what? Wouldn't what categorize passions? Let's see here. Okay, what do we got? Third panel. Oh, perfect. It's funny, the next sentence in this is starting with as a skeptic, which is kind of like as a man or as a single woman or I don't know. It's just a weird way to phrase a sentence as a skeptic, but I think it works. Let's see. Love for making comics and loving comics are two separate acts. Yes, but they're usually connected. Um, so I guess my point is, it, if somebody like truly loves the idea of making comics, if they well, actually more than love the idea, they love making comics. They actually, I guess, actually, you might be right. The better way of phrasing it might be like if they want to make comics, they'll make comics. If people don't want to make comics, they won't make comics. It's kind of like working out. Like I am a person who like I've avoided exercise and stuff like that the majority of my life, and in the last like 3 years, I've realized like, hey, if I want to exercise, I will exercise. And like I got to a point where I actually wanted to because I was feeling physically crappy if I didn't. And so I was like, okay, so if you want to do it, you'll do it. If you don't want to do it, you're not going to do it. If you kind of pseudo want to do it, like you don't really want to do it, but you like saying you want to do it, that's kind of the differentiation I'm making. I think the reason I mentioned love is love is a good analogy in the sense of like, I don't think love is just something you feel. I think love is something you act on, right? And love is an action. Like you show love through different actions. So but I would say want is that too, where it's like pure want is going to actually make you do something. And like, I will say there's probably a lot of people who just can't. But yeah, the will to act or not act on the fantasy, I think, is the bridge between the two acts. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it, James. Yeah, a lot of people are motivated and content to do the work. But there's also a lot of people who um, say they do the work. Um, and I guess you're mentioning like passion, like there are some people who do the work and have no passion in it. Yeah, for sure. But but it's hard to say, right? Because passion's like kind of like I think that's where Jake was right to kind of ground me on something a little more like work is a better, like want is a better term than passion. Like passion or love is a little harder to define. So then we start getting into like more arbitrary terms. Whereas like want is a pretty easy thing to define. Like if I really want food, like I want food, I'm hungry, right? I'm going to find food. If I can't find food, I'm going to have a real issue with that, right? And then if I kind of like, I want food, but I don't really want food, I'm just going to be like, meh, okay, I can go without it, you know? And for some people, I think it's like food where they need it, you know, like they just have to be doing it. But that's it. I know it all sounds abstract, but like that was one of the frustrations of teaching is like the one thing you can kind of try to well, we're not mixing up wants and needs though, because real want tends to have to do with need. So that's sort of a mix. I don't know if that makes sense. Like you can want something that you need. And then you can kind of like, I want that. Let's see here. I will say though, passion does kind of play into it in the sense of like, I think that I can definitely say people who say they're passionate about making comics and aren't making comics are lying. Right? Like because passion again it like has action behind it. Like otherwise we're just talking about these arbitrary like phrases that have no meaning. Passion has implied action with it, right? Passion and want usually tie in together. So I would say it's not that everybody doing it is passionate about it, but I would say people who say they're passionate about doing it and aren't doing it are suspects. Same with want. Like people who say they want to do it and aren't doing it, do they really want to do it? You know, but people who are doing it, maybe they don't even want to do it, but they're doing it. So like I guess my point is it's like it's easier to rule out people who aren't telling the truth as opposed to the people doing it, who knows? Like a bunch of motives could be there. Like I said, for myself, like my own motive may not have to do with like want. It might have more to do with like just I'm kind of finding more and more as I get older, I'm autistic. So it might just be like, I really dig this and that's just part of my nature to do it. Um, I don't know. But I will say one of my biggest pet peeves is hearing people saying, well, I've always wanted to make a comic. And it's like, have you though? Like, and it depends because if it's like I'm talking to like a 10-year-old and they're like, dude, I want to make a comic someday. Okay, I kind of buy it. But if I'm talking to somebody like my age who's like, I just have wanted to make a comic for so long. And I'm like, well, why not just make it? And they're like, well, I don't know. They have like a million reasons. That's the guy I want to read Pressfield's work because I feel like it's a good kick in the pants for that, you know? Yeah, and that's the thing, Jake. Like, I'm not saying there aren't people who, because of circumstances, aren't able. I guess my point is, I'm just suspicious when, like, I've talked to a lot of people who like want to do comics, and they're like, "But I just have no time." And then they'll tell me about like the latest season of Mandalorian, and I'm like, "Okay, so you had the time to watch like what, like 2 seasons of a television show?" But like, I mean, I love that show. I make the time to do that. But I'm just saying, if I weren't doing comics and I was like, it's so hard to find the time, and I didn't have a page or like art to my name, and then I could tell somebody like recite to them everything that's on television, like clearly there's time. It's just there's different desire, there's a different want, right? Being fulfilled there. So it's just one of those things, and it is one of the frustrations of most teachers is like that's the thing you can't teach. Like you can try to kind of ignite it, like you can try to kind of bring out the desire, the want, the need, right, in people, but and try to get them passionate about it and excited. And this is where passion ties in, right? Because it's like you can kind of fuel that a little bit. But in general, like there are people who just flat out like they could hear everything in the world and they're just not going to do it, you know. But they like saying they're going to do it. That's just a thing. Yeah, and I think if you're trying to gain social capital, you should look outside of comics. Not in a negative way. It's just I don't know. Indie comics, at least from the era I was into them, it's a subculture. I take umbrage with what you mentioned before, kind of posers, just like people who like one of my biggest pet peeves. But it's weird because it's like not even umbrage. Umbrage would be the wrong word because that almost sounds like offense. It's more like I just feel bad for like when I talk to somebody who says I always wanted to be a writer and they're not writing. It bums me out because I'm like I know there's a part of them that wants to, and then there's just like a much bigger part of them that's full of fear of rejection or fear of commitment to the time or fear of the work or fear of themselves kind of failing as they do it or feel of fear of the reality of like the art kind of coming out not as good as they expect, which inevitably is going to happen when you start getting into this. Like it's never most people's first crack at this stuff is not going to be like, oh wow, I'm a genius artist. It's like your first crack is like usually kind of going like crap, like this is really hard. you know or you write something you feel really good about and then you show it to someone and they read it and they're like this is awful, like um that experience. I think there are some people who prefer to live in the fantasy of art creation, um, uh, they live in like the fantasy of it, where like they're happier, kind of with the idea of like I've met people throughout my whole life who say I'm an artistic person, and then they don't do art, they don't do anything creative, but they they introduce themselves to everyone like I'm an artist, and it's like, well, what about you as an artist? Like, again, anyone can call themselves whatever they want. It's just like, you know, to me it just brings out like I want to see people do what they want to do, and if they aren't doing what they want to do, I question their want, right? I don't know if that makes sense. And I do that to myself too, right? So it's a hard standard to bear because we're inherently hypocritical as human beings, you know? Yeah, that's exactly my point. Not taking the steps to go there out of fear and substitutes it by living the dream idea in the mind, but never work it out. Yeah. And I remember as a young man, I was like working uh, at like a gas station, like graveyard shifts, and trying to kind of make it music and stuff. But I remember somebody saying this one thing once that just stuck with me because I was at the time saying like someday I'm going to make a comic, someday I'm going to do all this stuff. This is like when I was really young, right? And they were just basically saying like, well, you just dream when you're sleeping, right? You're not really dreaming awake at that point. You're just kind of talking about like dreams, like sleeping dreams. And I know it's weird, but it hit me a lot, and I actually took action because I realized I want to be a person who's like dreaming when I'm awake, and even if like it gets nowhere, at least I'm doing the work. Um, I'd 9 times out of 10, I want to be that person who can say, you know, I'm making the thing, like rather than the person who's like, you know, kind of pretending that someday when everything's perfect. That's like parenting too. Like I experience that a lot. I just realized I need to be working on comics, but it's like parenting where uh, if you wait for the perfect time to have a kid, you're never going to have a kid. Um, you know, so if you want a kid, at some point you're just going to have a kid. um, because like there's never going to be a point where like the world is so perfectly bulletproofed that you're going to be able to bring a child into the world without some kind of risk, right? It's a huge risk. So it's like at some point most parents that I know like just got to that point where they're like, well, you know what, we don't have everything perfect, but that's just the world. Like and honestly, you know, I think waiting for things to be perfect actually makes that um worse. So yeah, example, someone asks you, would you like to be able to draw tomorrow if it came to you easily? And a lot of people would think, yes, that would be cool, even if they had no interest in actually doing it. Exactly. Um, and then Jake was saying, I take offense with people who have produced a slim body of work and call it a day to disprove criticism since they've got the win when they could do so much more. Yeah, agreed. Um, you know, and I think that's war of art too, where it's like you literally need to be working at this thing daily. All right, so let's see here. These are all interesting points in the chats, guys. I gotta work out this panel real quick, and then we're at the hour mark. So what I'm gonna do is try to bust out this panel, and then take a very quick break. But I'm enjoying the chats. It's actually really lively discussion. Excuse me. So this was the thing. Let's see. Okay, that's right. As a skeptic, but like, I also think this might be a personality thing, because for me, I don't easily separate passion, work, and need. Like, I just don't separate those three very easily. Like, for me, the work that I'm most passionate about, I need to do. Like, I can't not do work that I'm passionate about. When I don't do work that I'm passionate about, I literally just am a terrible human being. And that's my own experience. But I really do think that's a lot of artists. So that's where, if it sounds like those overlap when I was talking, it's because for me, they very much overlap. Like, I think they're very intrinsically connected. It's a strange thing about my personality. I don't easily talk about things that I kind of like fantasize. Like, one day I want to have a yacht. I don't have that kind of conversation a lot. I'll usually talk about things that I can actualize. Like, it's just a weird thing. Yeah, my wife. My wife was just trying. You probably can't hear it, but she's back there working on kids' books. Let's see, in the corner over there, on her computer. But she was like just attesting to what I was saying, because she's like, if my wife is like, oh, it'd be cool if we could, just kind of randomly talking, I'll instantly like start mapping out like, okay, well, here's how we can make that happen. Here's why we can't do it right now. But if we follow these steps, like, we could be there in like 3 years. And then what we should do today to make it happen. Like, I'm that guy. Like, I just, even in leadership, like, there's all these different leadership styles, and I've had to take a million of those kind of tests and stuff, because I manage people, and it's good for you to know your own management style. And I'm like a systematic leader, so it's like, for me, I'm all about back planning. Like, where it's like, if I see a goal or an objective, I'm just like, okay, I need to back plan my way there. That's just the way my brain works, And I do think a lot of that's like very super autistic, but it's very advantageous too, because I can, like, for me, it's like, I do have limited windows of time, so I can map out like, okay, I'm gonna have a graphic novel, I need to carve away this much, and in 5 years I can have it done. Let's see. People shift from having no interest in doing it to wanting to actually create something, but don't actually do the act of creation, or they just kind of half-ass their creation. Yeah, but that's a really good point, James. There's this guy I'm remembering who collected penguins or Santa Claus memorabilia that had a great line. First it was an interest, then a hobby, then a passion, then obsession. Dude, okay, actually, I do think if you're a guy who collects penguins and Santa Claus memorabilia, and that's like your thing, and you're interested in it, and then you're doing it as a hobby, and then you become passionate about it, then you become obsessed with it. And what do you think that guy's doing? He's working at it. Like, I actually love I love that in people. Like, I one of my favorite things is like meet somebody who has a completely different hobby or obsession than me. It's hard for me to touch base with like sports people, because I just it's hard for me to find interest in that. But But even there, like if somebody's really passionate about it, at least they're like involved. I don't know. I like people who are active at pursuing their passions. And if that passion has to do with work, I think it's great. Like to me, the stars align if you can kind of make all three the same, like your need, your passion, and your want, like, and your work. Like if all of those align, I feel like that'd be good. Jake was saying, I often revert to that as a barometer. Yeah, that's good. And again, like I'm not meaning this as like like I would hate if somebody like watched this or something and was like, oh crap, like I'm a terrible human being. I'm not working hard enough on comics. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like there is an extent where you want to put your money where your mouth is, you know, with anything in life. I had this brief moment of like thinking I would get into doing stocks because I have some friends who've made some okay money doing stocks. I spent like 3 days doing it, and then I realized I need to get rid of what I just did and like sell off all the stocks I bought because I was just doing micro stocks. Like I'm talking about like 0.001% of a company or something. This is like pennies and stuff. But I got really into it, and then I realized I was making this mistake because I have no passion or interest in stocks. And because of that, like I'm not going to do the work that's required to make money or succeed in stocks. Like, so really, I was just gambling for like a couple days, and I'm not a person who likes gambling. So I realized like I was being kind of equivalent to like somebody who's like, oh, I like drawing, I'll draw for fun. And if you're gonna go all in, right, like on something, you want to make sure it's something you're passionate about. Because if you're not passionate about, like, you could lose a ton of money on it, or, yeah. And at least if you're passionate about it, and then you lose a ton of money at it, you'll have fun in the process, you know. Yeah. All right. So, such certainty. Okay, I'm excited about how this page is coming along. I'm enjoying the conversations in the chats. I'm going to take a very quick break, and when I come back, we can continue our conversation. I actually really am enjoying it. All right, I'll be right back, guys. Comics to me is a death drive on some days, but a great drive on others. It's well said. Yeah, that's my experience. But I think that has to do with That's why I brought up love, right? Because love doesn't always, like, I love my son, but like, he's not always like perfect, you know? There are days where he's like being a little turd, you know? Very rare. But it's like part of love is like you kind of do the work, like you bear through that and you kind of believe all things and like, you know, see it through, right? Because you love that person or love that activity or love that job or love whatever. You're kind of in it through thick and thin. And that's why, like, to me, like, want, work, desire, passion, and love, like, they aren't all these separate things. They're very interwoven. Um, and so I think, like, in a weird way, like, loving the action of making comics, like, does get you through the death drive of it because it isn't all fun. And I think a lot of the times when it is all fun, it's like it's not necessarily the best comics, like, you know, because I think some of the stuff you have to do, like to do a really hard like crowd scene or like crazy perspective drawing of a building or something, like those aren't fun, like, but they are fun, you know. The icky guy, explain to me, Jake. I might. You gotta. I'm bad with like. Give me the concept and I'll let you know. I will say like I because I had such a long time of like not exercising, and now that I do, I realize like it's very interwoven to that, like where exercising is something you can enjoy a lot, but a lot of the time the process sucks. But the result is really good, and so it's something that if you're passionate about it, you're going to do it, and you're going to show up, and you're going to get through your set, like even sometimes if it sucks and you're exhausted, like today's a good example. Like I really didn't feel like working out today. I just wanted to do my live stream and work on my comic. But I made the time because I realized it's something I want to do, I need to do, I'm passionate about doing, right? But I didn't enjoy it. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like an overlap of areas like love, need, good at, and paid for. At the center, it produces the final set of Ikigai. Final state. Okay, and why is that the final state? Okay, so it's like direction or purpose in life kind of thing. Dude, very cool. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like I don't think what I'm talking about is like this profound, like new thing. It's just it's a truism. And you know, I speak a lot in truisms that I've experienced in my own life, you know. I like that. Okay. What am I gonna do for this sequence? He's staring at his mug. Certainty. Okay, let's pull back the page that I'm creating a little repeated theme through. A systematic purpose production. Huh. Let's see. Oh, I know what I'm going to do here. Just gotta change up the viewpoints every once in a while. Keep things interesting. All right, so we got this going on. It's going to be sequence. In the West, it's close to logotherapy, or what Frankel said in his book about attitude attunement. That is super interesting, dude. Ronnie Gunter, how you doing, buddy? Ronnie, put your link in the chat so people can check out what you just posted. His webcomic just went live. I think on Webtoons, not Webtoons. You have it on Tapas. Put the link in the chat so we can all check it out. Actually, let me see. Or if you want, I can actually share it. I think I have the message still. Here, hang on. It's pretty good. It's an interesting start to a cool story. Okay. So you can also search for A Vengeful Heart, the ritual on Tapas. But let me see if I can throw up the link for you guys in chats. Let's see, banners. Create a banner. There we go. Okay. So if you guys go there or look up just like A Vengeful Heart, it's pretty cool. It's pretty good. Ronnie just put up his the intro to his horror comic, and it is super cool. And also creepy and intriguing. Like, it's definitely a good hook. I think you succeeded at getting people, at least for me, I'm invested. Like, I want to know what's going to happen next scene, you know? And he said the next episode is going to be called The Child. So yeah, make sure you guys check that out. How's it being received so far? Are you having a pretty good experience with it, Ronnie? Also, do you have work? I always forget Ronnie's work schedule. I feel like you could probably find a billion cuts of me chatting with Ronnie where I'm asking him about his work schedule. Ronnie's good. Like, he's a super good, like his stuff. I like horror as a genre too. And I think I'm gonna dig this because it's got like a mystical kind of mystery vibe to it. I think I'm pretty excited about it. Yep, heading to work. Hours are changing. Okay. I might make the rounds at some comic shops tomorrow just to kind of see how things go. Try to keep the signings going a little bit. So far, everyone who's read it said they like it. Yeah. Yeah, I dig it. I like that it's like I said, it's a really good mystery intro where it kind of implies some things. It's not super clear, but like in a good way where it's like, ooh, I want to know more. I want to know more about these people. I want to know more about these creatures that randomly appear. It's pretty well done, man. Definitely got me hooked. So that'll be fun to see where that goes. All right. Hmm. Now I'm hitting a point where I need to think about it because I want to have a long, wide panel like that. I want to kind of mimic that early panel layout. The monster kills were fun to make. Yeah, dude. Monsters are always fun to draw. I've heard a lot of non-artists be really surprised that people who draw monsters are pretty balanced and normal people. But like anyone who's an artist, I think usually gets the fact that like, hey, like drawing monsters is super fun. Like it's kind of like drawing zombies is fun because it's fun to draw like anatomy and get into all that like crazy interesting detail. It's just fun. Like it's super fun to draw. If I'm just like sketching in a sketchbook and I want to draw something just super fun, it would be a monster, just by default. All right. I need like a few seconds to think about this. Okay, I think I know what route I'm going to go here. Hmm. Okay, give me 2 seconds. I'm going to think about this for a second. Okay, I think I've got it figured out. What are you working on now? Oh, that's a good question, Jake. Jake was asking you, Ronnie, are you going to have to navigate the guidelines for content with your story by any chance? I think from what I saw, I think the first thing that came up was like a kind of like disclaimer, basically saying, "Hey, this is going to have like nudity, graphic violence, that kind of thing," and then you just hit okay, like affirm that you're of age to check out that stuff. So I think I think he might have already navigated it, but I don't know. Let's see here. And then I'm gonna, okay, so then here's, Ronnie just shared a photo. I'm gonna show you guys. So that's the, oh my goodness, sorry. Let me pop it up here in my little way to like show a vengeful heart. And look at that, it's got like a demon and an altar and some kind of cool stuff. So gravestone, pretty excited about that. So you guys should go check it out. Yeah, it's in the mature area, so I think he's good. Um, which is actually, it's funny. I have no problem with like there being like a, hey, this is for mature readers. I'm not remembering on Tapas. I think mine might have even had that, just because it's like, I use language and talk about like suicide and like heavy topics and stuff. I don't want like some like 5-year-old like in fact, actually, when I did the comic book store signing, that was one of the most awkward things. Is like there's all these kids, and I'm like, I have like a 7-year-old, so I love kids, like they're awesome. And they'd stop by my booth, and I'd talk to them, but I like, well, they kept like they'd grab for the book, and I'm like, no, 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 that's not something you want, like I'm kind of trying to give hints to the parents too at the time. I was like, yeah, this isn't like a kid book, because like the last thing I want is like a 7-year-old to like pull open a book and that talks about like a suicide attempt in the first like 2 pages, like give that kid like a terrible impact. I almost feel like that would be worse than like stumbling upon like a horror movie or like nudity or something. Yeah, so that's an interesting thing to navigate, the whole making comics that aren't for kids. I think it's good to make comics for kids too, but I don't know. To me, I think it's kind of good that these things have that. And then Ronnie was pointing out, if you look at the wing and the tree branches, it forms a heart shape. Yeah, that's rad. A vengeful heart shape. That's right. Okay, so particularly something that on its face was irrational. And this may be one of those nights where I do not finish a page, guys. If the comics market truly grew up, it would accommodate for grown-up material. Speaking for the US, of course. I totally agree. Um, to me, it's strange that what I write is strange for comics. Um, I feel like if we're in a world that, like if I were doing just like a regular book signing and I mentioned like the topics of my comic, it wouldn't be weird for people. But because of the fact that I am doing a comic book signing and my comic is autobiographical and talks about faith and mental illness, which there are books about, like um people just get kind of weirded out. They're like, "Oh, well, I liked Spider-Man." And you're like, "Yeah, okay, I get it. I liked Spider-Man too, but this is a different thing." It'd be equivalent to somebody being like, "Hey, have you read like Jack Kerouac's On the Road?" And you're like, "No, but I like really like books. Like Stephen King's like The Stand was great or something." Like it's a totally different genre. It's okay. But in my ideal world, comics would be exactly like a bookstore. That's where I'd like to see comics, where there's just everything represented. Now, in reality, I think that is the case. I just think, unfortunately, like there's giant subsets of comics uh, that are underrepresented. The signing at the music store, that's a good question, Ronnie. It did not go great. But it was weird, it was awesome. I did a vlog about it. It was a good experience because I got to know the store owners. It was, there was a mix of things, like, first off, the traffic at the store at the day all relied on a thing that happens on Thursdays, where it's like a farmer's market, and I think it's like first Thursdays of every month. And so it was like it was going to be like a big deal, except that where I live, the area is like 120, well, not 120, but I think it was like 110 or 113 degrees outside. And so, like, all the vendors on the farmers market were just like barren. Like, nobody was walking on the street. There was no street traffic. And it's a store that relies heavily on street traffic. And so it's just not a day where people are like walking around shopping. So that might attribute to some of it. But yeah, no, it wasn't as successful. Like, the comic store signing was great. I moved a lot of books, and it like gave me the confidence to do conventions, because I'm just like, yeah, I mean, if I do that okay at like a comic shop in my hometown that's like not super comic friendly, I'll probably do okay at a convention for comics. But yeah, the music shop thing was a gamble. So far, who knows? But so far, not a great gamble. But they did say they'd have me back. And then the cool thing is, I also got to know the owners, and they're just like this awesome old couple that were just like the weirdest, coolest people, because they were just like, they retired, and they just decided, like, hey, let's start a music shop that like specializes in like these rare records that'll sell to like mostly people into punk rock and like jazz. It's just a weird, awesome couple, like these old rad beatniks and stuff. And it was cool. I mean, so at the end of the day, like, I don't regret it, because I think it was a positive day. And what the hell, it's fun to have a day off and hang out at a record shop. So yeah, and weirdly enough, I might do it again, because it was fun. And I did sell some books, but it wasn't nearly, yeah, it definitely wasn't quite the success I would imagine. I might try another music shop in like a more central location. Or I might go back to that one and try it on like a day when it's not like, you know, in the middle of summer where it's like super hot and like nobody's there. But yeah, yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. But it's not something I regret. It was a good experience. I'm trying to be really transparent about like signings and stuff. So like when I do them, I don't want to be like, I think there's a bit of like kayfabe that happens in the comics community where people will be like, yeah, the signing was just off the hook. And some of that like makes sense, because it's going to push more books. It gives the semblance of like confidence and like people's interest and stuff. But for me, like, I think it would make better content just to like tell people how it is. Like, when you do these things, like, sometimes they don't do well, and sometimes they do. Especially if you're not like working on like a Batman book or something, where you're like some known commodity. Um, so yeah, yeah, I don't know, but yeah, that's how it went. Okay, so I got to figure out what I'm going to do here. But overall, like, between the 2 days, I made what a lot of people make at a comic convention, So it's like it wasn't too bad. Um, and also it was a fun experience. So to me, like, that's a huge part of it too. Let's see here. The other thing about events like that too is you pass out a lot of flyers and stuff. And my experience is like, um, kind of like with conventions, when you go to a con, like your first time at a con, when you haven't been to a con, sometimes it'll seem slow, and there will be a lot of people who stop by your booth and they don't buy anything. But then when you go the next year, you'll have like some of those same people come back and be like, dude, I thought about this all year. Like, I wish I had picked it up then. I'm going to pick it up now. So like they weren't just wasting your time at the booth, which I think like a lot of human nature will be like, oh, this person's not going to buy anything. Who cares? But if you're like polite and nice to all these people, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool because like it can actually return, like if you do the same con the next year. So like the friends of mine who I know who do like San Diego Comic Con and can make table and then they make like a really hefty profit after that, have been doing it for years. And like the first few years they did it were a total loss. And it was that exact dynamic I was describing where they would have tons of people stop by the booth. They'd be really polite to those people. The next year, those people and then some of the new people would come, and some of them would buy, even though they didn't buy the last year. And then the next year, like they'd bring friends and stuff like that. And it starts getting this reputation. So by like the fourth year, you have like a thing where like people are like, crap, I gotta go by this guy's booth and pick up his stuff. And so I've seen people like have a lot of success with that. But I will say also a big lesson from that, even my successful signing, like at the comic shop, it felt slow the whole time because it's a retail shop, right? And it's on a Wednesday. So, which, you know, here, at least in the US, that's when everybody, you know, gets their pull lists and stuff. It's like the first Wednesday of the month. So you have all these people like coming in, getting their issues and stuff, and then it's dead. And then it like one person walks in and then it's dead. And it's like that for the whole day. So what's cool is um, if you are polite and nice and like you keep your cool, because a lot of the time it feels really boring. Like you're at a store, it doesn't feel like you're moving a bunch of books. But then when you're done, like you count up what you've sold and you're like, holy shit, like you actually sold a lot of books. At least that was my experience at the comic shop, because it's a retail shop, right? Like most retail shops, like if you worked retail, you don't have like lines out the end of the like of the street unless it's like Christmas or something, or like Black Friday. But like most of the time, it's just a steady stream of customers making a lot of income, but just very slowly. Um, so that's something I'd advise, like especially if somebody's doing their first in stores, like don't get disheartened. Like try to keep your energy. Try to stay engaged with every customer who comes in, even if they're just looking at your booth and it feels like they're wasting your time. Like because every single one of those people matter, and some of them might come back. And also it's honestly a cool experience being able to get to meet other comic geeks. Like people are geeked out about comics even if they aren't into your comics. So yeah, so that's what I would say. Adam was saying, I think as a medium, comics can handle any genre, but certain genres and lend themselves to comics more than others. Personal auto-bio stuff and cartoony stuff, for example. You have taken advantage of what the medium can do. Thanks. Yeah, I'm trying, man. We'll see. We'll see. I'm trying to think of the imagery for this. I don't want it to be in the apartment anymore. I think I want it to cut away to the top of the building again. That's going to require me to look at the building and what it looks like. Let's see here. Sorry, so what is everybody working on? Let me know in the chats. I want like a go around. I don't know if James is still here. James, or what are you working on? James, what are you working on? Jake, what are you working on? And Ronnie, if you're still here, what are you working on? And Adam, what are you working on right now? I always love hearing what everybody's doing. And if you're not working on anything, that's fine. All right, so let's see here. I gotta find a rooftop shot of the building again, because I'm gonna pull out of it again. There we go. That is good. Okay, I'll pull from this previous. It's a good angle too. Winding up to continue work I left off last Sunday. My week is going to be packed with comics making. That sounds like the best kind of week, though. How do you balance making comics and life stuff, Jake? I always feel like that's the conundrum. Then Ronnie was saying he's listening to me before starting his work. You know what? Like, I take that as an honor because I hope I kind of set your day in a good direction. Because like I definitely I listen to a lot of like podcasts and shows and stuff like that. And I feel like that's the way to go. The secret that's the secret, Captain. I don't have a life. I think that might be a big part of cartooning in general. um, yeah, it's a lot of like lonely days just kind of spent working on stuff. So that is the other part that it irritates the hell out of me when people are like talking big about working hard on comics, and it's like, no, 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 because like there are some sacrifices to doing this stuff. Oh man, I remember. So the first comic I did seriously, I always want to say seriously because I made a lot of comics as a kid, but like the first serious comic I did was that comic Numb, and it's like before I had done any anthology work or anything like that. And um, yeah, I remember like I made that while I was in college, and the whole process of making that book was a lot of me for almost a year. It took me about a year, which is insane to think in retrospect because there wasn't a lot of pages. It's like 24 pages. It shouldn't have taken a year, but it did because I was like figuring out the medium and stuff. But yeah, that was like a year of me telling a lot of people like I can't go out, I have to work on this thing, and they're like, no, 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 come on, dude, let's go out, and I'd be like, nope, sorry, I have to do this thing, and they're like, well, why do you have to do this thing? Like nobody cares about that thing. And I remember at the time I had one friend who was a really bad friend, um, who kept telling me that it wouldn't amount to anything what I was doing. And then I remember after getting the Zarek grant, when I applied for the Zarek grant for that thing, he kept saying like, "Oh, you're never going to get this grant. Like you're nobody." Like that kind of thing. He's just a dick, like a terrible friend. But anyhow, what's funny is in retrospect, yeah, like after getting that grant, our friendship quickly dissolved a little bit. Um, but it was partially because I just realized like this is just not a good person. Like, so that's a huge thing too. If you're gonna make comics, you want to surround yourself with like friends and family and people who understand it because it's a lot of time, you know. Art takes time, and like it's important to have people in your life who know the time that it takes and are cool with that. Let's see. So anyhow, uh, Ronnie said, "It does. It motivates me. All artists should be around other artists that are uplifting." Hell yeah, dude. Screw the negativity, guys. And don't get me wrong, I can be like negative too, but it's like I think in general, like we have to proactively like try to surround ourselves by people who are in it and making stuff and like keeping a positive attitude. Because like otherwise, like what is the fruit I'm gonna get from hanging out with like people who are not in it, like and doing it and excited about what they're doing? Like inevitably, I'm gonna be influenced by the people I surround myself with, and I think I agree with. That's a long-winded way of me saying, Ronnie, I agree with you. So, all right, this is gonna be. Is it snowing in this sequence? I think it is still snowing. Okay. Double check that. Yes, it is snowing. Okay. All right, getting towards the 2 hour mark. I might cap this off at about like two. Let's see, it's about 2 in the morning now. I think I'm gonna probably call this before it's like 2:40, maybe a little earlier. So, and I definitely am gonna need to take a very brief break at the hour mark, and then I'll probably go for about let's say like 20 more minutes. So let's see here. Oh, this is actually not bad. All right. Okay. I'm going to make that 10-second break again and then get back and try to knock out more of this page. Even if I can't get the full page, I want to get some of it. All right. I do want to say also, I just like really appreciate everybody who shows up in the chats for this. It's super fun to have other artists to kind of hang out and talk to you and know that everybody's working on stuff. Like, I don't know, that encourages me, pushes me to go a little further than I might otherwise go. Let's see here. All right. So I'll be back shortly. Let's see. All right, Ronnie's heading out. Make sure, as Ronnie's leaving, you guys give his comic some love. I'll throw that link up again. Let's see in the comments section. Wait, not comment section. Here it is. Yeah, so go to that link, give his comic some love because it's pretty cool, and we want to encourage other indie creators. All right. So now I need 3 more panels, and then I'm going to probably call it a night. So let's see here. Let me get through. I know that's going to come here and be like that. Okay, cool. And then I want 3. And we'll see if this works. The nice thing about like these being like thumbnails and kind of rough pencils is some of this will be fixed in post, which will sound funny to anybody who works in like video, because that's like the nightmare when people are like, oh, we'll fix it in post. Okay. All right, so I'm going to aim to get these 3 panels and then call it a night. And I will probably try to do like a stream maybe in the morning or something. Might be an interesting stream where you'll see like Benji playing and running around in the background, but those can be fun. Let's see here. Issues. Okay. Just wrote that completely wrong. It should say still realized. All so on what you were saying, Jake, about having no life. One of my favorite quotes from like a film, and I'm gonna botch it, is like in Almost Famous. Actually, you know what? Let me look it up so I don't botch it. The only true currency in this bankrupt world is what you share with someone else when you're uncool. And to me, that I remember when I saw that film in the theater, that like resonated so hard with my life experience. Um, I love surrounding myself with people who are uncool because I think that's true currency. I think that film is correct. And anybody who thinks that film was bad, I will argue to the hills with. Ah, okay. So here's how I'm going to connect them all. It's just going to be a book. And Jake was saying, if you think about it long enough, the world is built by unknown and uncool people too. Yeah, 100%. And like quite often, especially popular culture, I've seen this happen in cities I've lived in. Like when I lived in Long Beach, it was like there was this huge part of Long Beach that was awesome and artistic and cool and just kind of strange and like just full of outcasts, and then it got like gentrified and destroyed. And it's like and then all these corporations moved in and like tried to look like these uncool, like outcast awesome places, and just failed epically at it. And all the things about the city that made it cool started migrating out. uh, I've seen that happen like a million times. I think that's the nature of it. um, I definitely see that in comics too. So, but I'll take the uncool till I'm, yeah. What's cool to me has always been pretty uncool stuff. Let's see. Okay. Almost there, guys. Almost there. Is there anything you guys want to know before I kind of wrap? I'm probably going to be on for about 10 more minutes or 15 more minutes. I should also mention, I have no idea how, but somehow, quarterly stories, sorry, two stories. I just called it by the old webcomic name. But my first graphic novel, Two Stories Book One, is on sale on Amazon for like, so like I spent a little over 5 years on making the comic, and it's on sale for like $1 more than the amount of years that I spent making it, which is kind of cool. So on Amazon, you can get it for like a very low cost, like $6. So if you have been on the fence, and I think most people in the chats already have the book, but if you have been on the fence about getting it, you can literally get it for like a little over what you'd spend on like a floppy comic from Marvel, for 122 hand lettered, hand inked pages. And then Jake was saying, I can't wait till Two Stories releases quarterly. In theory, that's where I'd like to get. Although there's only 2 books, so. But what'll be interesting is Quarterly Stories is eventually going to be the hub. Like that is still the URL, and that'll eventually be the hub for a lot of the stuff. I don't like that face for God, but I'm still gonna. I'm going with this corny kind of king thing that I did. I want it to be a little more corny. Maybe there's even like a. Okay. Oh yeah, that's much better. Just do those. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, that's pretty cool. But eventually, when I'm doing other stories, they'll still be under the quarterly stories URL. So there's that. I'm debating what I'm going to work on after this is done. But I keep leaning towards either an all ages thing or possibly a historical fiction thing. Or just taking a little bit of time off of comics and painting for like 3 months. But as we talked about at the top about like love and work and that kind of thing, I do love comics. So I don't know if I could do like that long, like 3 months without. Are you cheating with the panel so you can go to bed and fix it in post? I I don't think so. But at this point, I am a little tired, so that might be the case. And if that's the case, I will probably have to fix it up tomorrow morning. And with the Bible. Painted comics incoming? Maybe, I don't know. I know the style will be different, whatever I work on. I have one comic that I worked on these streams that was like a pitch project that we have shopping around. And so I will let you guys know. Typography, period. Oh, actually, that should be a period. Is that what you were talking about? Let's see here. Also, speaking of typography, that does make me think this should be centered. And then Jake was saying, you caught on quick, grasshopper. Actually, it's funny. I should show you this because I think I was a little sleepy when I was doing that because, let me see if I can find it. Check this out, Jake. You corrected me to be accurate to my script. Boom. I just thought you'd get a kick out of that. So Jake, you are keen. All right. And on point, sir. Okay, so I had the Old Testament and with the Bible. I just used a Bible up top. I know exactly what I need to do. I know exactly the fix. This needs to be here. This needs to be an open one. And then we are good to go. All right. Did we do it? Did we do the night gang? I think this would count as some night ganging, you guys. So the page is coming along. I will finish it up tomorrow. I want to say thanks to everybody who least favorite part of the Bible, old and new. I mean, uh, it's weird. You kind of can't have one without the other, but like to me, I would say like the things that changed my mind were like Matthew and John. So like definitely New Testament. But then again, my favorite book of the Bible is Ecclesiastes, which is like old. So I can't. I hope that doesn't sound like a cop out, but I don't know, because if my favorite book of the Bible's in the Old Testament, but my favorite parts of the Bible are in the New, I don't know. It's hard to pick. Um, yeah. All right. So with all that being said, I'm gonna call it, guys. So thank you so much, Jarvis, Adam, Ronnie, who stopped by earlier, Jake. Always a fun conversation. I am hoping to do another one of these streams shortly, and so maybe in the morning or maybe midday tomorrow, I will be doing another live stream. But thank you to everybody who tuned in to this one, and I just appreciate it. Um, I don't know. I feel very fortunate to have people who want to hang out and do art with me and talk about art with me. Um, anyhow, so yeah, if you're new to this channel and you guys watch this far, make sure you subscribe, hit the bell, hit like, hit comment, or comment on maybe say like what your thoughts are on the idea of like truth, work, um, passion. Like, does passion and work and all of those things, the Issei, or wait, it wasn't Issei. Issei is second generation. Um, you know what? I'm too tired to pull back to it. But yeah, anyhow, let me know what you guys think, and appreciate your thoughts and comments and support. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye. Whew. And I sneezed. So I need to go to sleep. I'll see you guys.